A young man asked as he entered the hospital room of Kushina Uzumaki, and she held her baby for the first time since his birth a day ago. The 22-year-old red-haired young woman looked up at the young man, no more than maybe 15. The young woman sighed. She had yet to get used to the title that her husband has passed on to her. Luckily, she would have help in that matter when she appointed new advisors. The council wishes to see you, the young man said again as he sat next to her. Kushina looked at the young man. You can go and tell the council to go foo. She was cut off when her baby boy had started crying. As quickly as she could, she had tried to quiet the baby down once more. A small chuckle was heard from the door to her room. Hiruzen Sarutobi had walked in and stood next to Kushina. You should be more careful what you say from now on, young lady, the man who was once called the professor said. He took a seat next to Kushina as he looked at the baby in his mother's arms. Kushina, however, couldn't look at him. She looked away as she said a small, I'm sorry. Hiruzen looked at the young mother before him and smiled. It had saddened him greatly when he had lost his wife, but he couldn't blame her for something that she had no control over. It's not your, nor is it Minato's fault that Buwako had died yesterday, he said softly. Mom, what about the council meeting? The teen asked. Kushina wanted nothing more than to stuff a kunai up there. Kushina sighed and looked at the young man. Tell them that I will hold a meeting in 2 days. I'm not cleared to leave the hospital yet, Kushina said. There was just so much to do. That never stopped you before, the teen said. Kushina glared at him as Hiruzen just laughed a little. I don't heal as fast as I used to, Kakashi, so stuff it, the young woman said. She laid down as she handed her baby to the teen now known as Kakashi. Drop him and you'll be joining your father, she warned. She turned her head to look at Hiruzen. As for you, tell that whole Danzo that, the next time he sends root after my son again, that I will kick his so hard that they will have to surgery remove it. Hiruzen nodded. He will deliver, after he talks to Kushina. I will, he said. Now what about your new advisors? He asked. Kushina turned her head to look at him. I want you and Sensei, she said tiredly. Hiruzen nodded. Getting Tsunade back was going to be hard though. As if reading his thoughts, Kushina handed him a scroll. Have that pervert deliver that to her, Kushina said. Tell him that if he doesn't find her in the next few days, I'll ban his porn. Hell, I'll ban all porn from the village. Hiruzen smiled, knowing that this would get his old student moving to find his teammate. Hiruzen looked at Kushina as she had finally fallen asleep. For now he was acting Hokage until Kushina was up and about again. Truth be told, she should have died when the Kyuubi was removed from her, but her bloodline and her chakra had kept her alive. Slowly getting up, Hiruzen had summoned one of his monkeys to deliver the message to Jiraiya, and with the added message as well. Before he left, he turned to look back. The baby, whose name was Naruto, was asleep in Kakashi's arms. The teen that had just started training in Anbu had also fallen asleep. Hiruzen left him alone. He had a message to give to a one-eyed bastard. Tsunade. A woman with long blonde hair turned around and growled. Coming up the road was with long white hair and an odd headband on his head. What had caught her attention though was the fact he looked like hell. When he had caught up to her, what he said next had her blood run cold. Minato was in battle. Tsunade wanted to scream. She had lost her only child. Her apprentice looked at her as Tsunade had fallen to her knees. Someone attacked Kushina just after she had given birth to her son, Jiraiya said. Tsunade looked up, tears in her eyes. She had lost her baby to that damn village, just like she had lost his father, and the uncle he had never known. So is Kushina dead too? Tsunade asked. Kushina was Tsunade's student. While not as good in medic ninjutsu, she was a terror in her own right during the war. She was so young and she had a lot of promise. If only she had gone with her, she would still be alive. However, what Jiraiya said next had her head moving so fast both Shizune and Jiraiya heard a cracking sound. No, Kushina's alive, Jiraiya said. But get this, before he died Minato named Kushina Hokage. Tsunade's eyes had widened. That was one of her dreams, but after Minato was named Hokage she had given that up in favoring her then boyfriend. Soon after she had beaten Minato after she found out she was pregnant, she had married him. Tsunade smiled, finally something good was happening. Then a scroll was handed to her. What the? Tsunade opened the letter and her eyes widened. It only said a few words but she had gotten the message. Tsunade-sensei, I need you back at the village please. Kushina. Tsunade looked at Shizune who smiled and gave the older woman a small nod. Getting up, Tsunade looked at the two of them. Let's go home, Tsunade said. She had failed a lot of people in her life. Her brother, her lover and father of their child, her grandfather and granduncle. However, she will not fail her student and daughter-in-law, and most of all her grandson. 2 days later, council meeting hall. The room was in a buzz. The meeting had yet to start and already tempers were flying. On one side of the room was the civilian council. They had yelled at anyone they could think of that the child known as Naruto Uzumaki should be put to death. On the other side of the room were the shinobi of the village. So you want a newborn child just because you think he's the QB? Chu Minazuka yelled at a pink-haired woman. I don't think I know he's the QB reborn. The woman had argued back. Chum crossed her arms. There's a difference between a scroll and kunai, you dumb bitch. Chum cursed at her. Makes me wonder who the real monsters are. He was looking at all members of the civilian side. Just before things could get out of more hands, the door was slammed open and Danzo came falling in the room to land on his face. Next time you talk to me like that, you old fool, I'll have you'd. Kushina said as she walked into the room. 2 days has done wonders for the young woman as she walked into the room. She was wearing a red and black kimono top with the Uzumaki symbol on the left side, her Konoha headband which she had not worn in a long time thanks to her being in Anbu was across her now slim waist to act as a belt. She wore the standard black ninja pants and black steel-toed boots that came to her knees. She had on black figureless gloves with metal panting on the back of them. A katana was across her back and pouches were hooked up to the belt. Listen up and listen well, you stupid ass. Kushina said as she sat down in her seat. If anyone ever touches, tries anything funny, or tries to him, I will execute you myself, do you understand? Kushina asked as she looked at the civilian council. Kushina was leaking a chakra all over the place. However, like in all meeting, there was just that one fool in the coward that had to put in his 2 cents. You can't do that, he said. Why are you even Hokage in the first place, outsider? The fool found out the hard way why Kushina was Hokage when she had flashed. Yes, she flashed before the fool and held him by the neck. I'm Hokage because that was the last wish, which Minato had wanted. Kushina said before she slammed the old man down. I'm no more an outsider than you are a ninja. I have fought long and hard beside most of the people in this room. I have bled alongside them as we fought to protect your worthlesses. Kushina made her way back to her seat. I am Kushina Uzumaki, the 5th Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. Kushina said with a hard look in her eyes. As of right now, people, there are going to be some changes, both for the good and maybe a little for the bad, it all depends on who you ask. Kushina then looked at everyone. Believe it. Sitting behind her desk, Kushina Uzumaki, the newly appointed Hokage, was working hard, harder than any other Hokage that had ever ruled the village of Konoha. Next to her was her newborn son of only a few days, Naruto Minato Uzumaki. Whoever that bastard was, if I ever see him again I'm going to rip out his. The young mother's thoughts were stopped as there was a knock on the door. This better be good or I'll have your head. Kushina yelled out. The door opened and a young woman no more than maybe 15 walked in carrying a small stock of papers. I'm sorry, Mom, but these just came in, the teen said as she sat the stock down. Kushina sighed. She would hate having to do this, but she had no choice. Placing her figure in a cross shape, she softly cried out, Kage Bushin no Jutsu. 5 clones appeared before her. Each of you take a pile and fill 'em out. Kushina order. She then looked at the teen. Yes, my eye? She asked softly, as she walked over to the baby. Kushina looked at her then nodded. The young teen smiled and gentle picked Naruto up. She gently held him close to keep the newborn warm. Kushina looked at the teen and smiled a little. It's hard to believe that this sweet innocent baby is thought to be. She stopped her train of thought as she looked at Kushina. I'm sorry, Mom. It's just that a lot of the villagers are afraid, she said. Kushina looked at her, and nodded. I was scared for a little bit as well, but as I hold him, I'm not scared anymore. Kushina sent down her pen and turned to the young woman. A lot of people fear what they don't understand. I myself was afraid at one point. Kushina said. I original came from the lost village as your generation calls it. The teen looked at her in shock. Kushina smiled. That's right, I'm a survivor of Whirlpool. Kushina said. I was 10 when I came to Konoha. The village had just been destroyed. We did have enough people left to help rebuild, so it became the Lost Village in the history books. Kushina got up and stood before the window looking out it and watching the people of Konoha move about. I can't tell the reason why I was brought here, but I can tell you that the day that I arrived was the best day of my life. Kushina said with a smile. Then that smile turned into a frown. When Kushina turned around, the teen was still watching here. Mom, if I may ask, when was the last time you slept? She asked. Kushina shook her head. I haven't been able to sleep very well. Kushina said. I keep having nightmares and that idiot knocking me out and making me Hokage. Kushina said with a frown. If Minato were alive I would have probably kicked his wimpy butt. The teen just smiled as she rocked Naruto. The 4-day-old baby had fallen asleep in her arms. Wimpy butt? She asked. I always thought his butt was cute. Kushina gave the teen a look that said, don't go there. Yes, well he looked like a wimp when he was a kid. Kushina said. Did you know that he saved my life a few times? The teen shook her head. The rest of the day was spent with Kushina talking to the young teen. When the clones have finished the paperwork, it was well into the evening hours. Go home already, Kushina ordered the teen. And thanks. The teen smiled and looked back at Kushina. You're welcome, Mom. With that, the young woman left Kushina in the office. Thank you, dear, Hiruzen said as his daughter walked up to him. She needed someone to talk to. The teen nodded before she had relished the henge that she had worn. Standing in her place was a black-haired young woman about 24 with blue eyes and black hair. She hasn't been sleeping too well as far as I can tell, she said. Kind of reminds me of you when Orochi-chan went AWOL. Hiruzen gave the young woman a look. She back up and raised both her hands. Sorry, Daddy. she said, giving him the sad puppy dog eyes. Rain, I asked you never to bring that up again. The young woman, who was now known as Rain Sarutobi, could only smile. Hiruzen smiled at his eldest daughter. Do you blame her? He had to ask. The only one had blamed the death of their mother, however that blame was laid on the tiny newborn that was sleeping next to his mother. I thought long and hard about who to blame for Mom's death, and in all honesty I don't blame either Kushina or little Naruto. Rain said. No one knew what would have happened that night. You yourself could have been if you were there as well. Rain said. I know Mom won't want us to blame rather one. Hiruzen wished he could believe her. His eldest son Sasuke, named after his grandfather, had almost declared war on the young woman and her son. His youngest and his daughter seemed to have disagreed with him though. Better get home to that boyfriend of yours. Hiruzen with a glare. His little girl had been dating the same boy for the last 2 years, they had just moved in together about a month ago. Rain smiled and hugged her father before she left him standing in the hallway. Hiruzen looked back at the closed doors that led to what used to be his office. He prayed that Kushina calls it quiet soon so the young woman can get some sleep. As the former Hokage turned and walked down the hallway that led out of the building, Hiruzen made a special note to tell Kushina about meeting with the Fire Lord. And you are sure that this young woman can handle the position? The Fire Lord asked. He was sitting across from Hiruzen with a folder before him. After all, she did just lose her husband. Hiruzen nodded. He had seen Kushina, Will of Fire, the day that she had met with the council. Kushina has quite a unique background. Hiruzen said. She first came to Konoha so that she could replace Mito Uzumaki, a relative of hers, but we could never prove it, to replace Mito as the new host for the QB. The Fire Lord nodded at that. She had trouble getting along with the people of the village. They always were calling her outsider and such. The Fire Lord looked at the picture of Kushina as a child. However, and I tell you, I don't know how many times she got in trouble, but she would fight back. Hiruzen said with a smile on his face. She never gave up when it mattered though, even during the war when she sadly lost 2 of her teammates. The Fire Lord looked over the piece of information. Kushina is highly skilled in ninjutsu, kenjutsu, genjutsu and fuinjutsu, the like that neither I nor anyone else in the village has ever seen before. The Fire Lord looked up in shock at what Hiruzen had just said. He looked back down, turning pages over and reading detailed reports. This young woman is truly amazing, he said, looking back at Hiruzen. I approve. Make sure that the Ninja Council votes her in. Hiruzen nodded. Yes, of course. Why are we here again? Kushina had asked. She was seating in the Hokage chair in the council room. Oh right, to vote me in. Kushina then handed everyone a copy of something. The piece of paper before you is the last will and testament of Minato Namikaze, the yellow flash of Konoha and the 4th Hokage. Kushina said. In it Minato had stated that I, Kushina Uzumaki, is hereby from this day forward the 5th Hokage of Konoha. She said, looking around the room. Anyone here have a problem with that? Several hands from the civilian side were raised. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a ninja matter, what the are you even doing here? Kushina had asked. A man no more than 40 stood up. We have a right to be here, Lady Kushina. It is our duty to make sure that the right choices for the village is made. He said as he sat back down. Right, and I vote that we look for a new Hokage. Someone else said. This person had bite pick hair and green eyes. We can't let this outsider run things, who knows what would happen. Kushina slammed her hands down on the table and looked at the woman. You old bitch. Kushina yelled out. The fourth Hokage has named me the fifth Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Tsunade Senju and several clan heads have already voted. Kushina said, making everyone look at her. As of right now, this so-called outsider is now the leader of Konohagakure no Sato. Kushina then blink. Why the hell am I telling you all this again? And what the are you two doing here? Kushina asked as she glares at Koharu Utatane and Homaru Mitokado. I removed your sorries as my advisors. Kushina said she wanted to hear their excuses. Sadly, what they had said was true. Sadly, Kushina-sama, you have yet to take office. Koharu said. While yes, you are doing paperwork, you have yet to become the official Hokage of this village. Kushina growled. Do not get us wrong, young Uzumaki, we will step down once you swear the oath of office. Kushina turned back to the other in the room. Shika Nara stood up as, he was the head of the Nara clan. Kushina Uzumaki, as a ninja of Konohagakure you have shown bravery in the face of countless dangers. You have also shown that you have a strong head on your shoulders and a gentle heart. He said. That being said, I believe that Minato Namikaze made a good choice in the fifth Hokage. Kushina smiled. Each member of the clan's head stood up to say what they believed. Some had voted against the idea, while most had nothing but to agree. However, it was again a fool that had ruined her good mood. The only reason that Minato had appointed this bitch as Hokage was because he was in her. Kushina was on her feet so fast that no one but a few people had seen her move. She attacks anyone without reason. The person said. She's hot-tempered and will no doubt cause more harm than good for the village. Hiruzen was behind Kushina, holding her back from attack the head of the Uchiha clan. The old man behind could hear the young woman growling. However, Kushina does love the village more than anyone that I have ever seen. Fugaku said. I think it would be an honor to have Kushina as the fifth Hokage. Kushina smiled at him. However, he wasn't going to get away with what he had said. She'll have to tell Mikoto about it, that'll take care of him. Hiruzen let the young mother go and Kushina sat down. The young woman then sighed and looked at Danzo. Have you done what I have told you to do? She asked. The old man looked her way. Yes, Lady Hokage. Kushina had raised an eyebrow. Oh really? Kushina snapped her fingers and two men were brought in. It's a funny thing, Naruto decided that he was hungry in the middle of the night last night, so I woke up when I did. These two men happened to have been in our home. Danzo glared at the two. His message was clear, do the mission and be successful or take the cyanide pill. Seemed that these two idiots didn't understand very well. However, Kushina saw the glare. Now normally they would have beamed on the spot. Kushina said. Once I knocked them out I took these. Kushina tossed a bag with a type of pill in them. Kakashi, clear the floor. Kakashi left the room making the others wonder why the floor was cleared. 2 seconds later no one saw Kushina move. She moved in a flash of red light, was standing next to Danzo and had picked him up and had thrown him hard to the floor. Everyone hear something snap. They told me everything. Kushina said, picking up Danzo by the neck. I had wondered how that masked man was able to find me. Kushina then punched Danzo in the chest. Again everyone heard something break. I had nothing to do with that, I swear. Danzo gasped out. I'm trying to protect Konoha, not destroy it. Kushina growled. It doesn't matter, you tried to have your men me and take my baby. Kushina held out her hand and to everyone's shock a sphere of dark blue energy had formed. Don't please. Danzo begged. I was only thinking about the future of Konoha. Kushina did say anything. Hiruzen stood up, ready to stop the young woman. He did have to. Kushina dropped Danzo to the floor. She turned her back on the old man and walked back to the table. Kushina, look out. Someone had warned. Kushina had spun around so fast that Danzo did see Kushina fist go through his shoulder. What happens next shocked everyone as Danzo's arm was blown off. The old man yelled out in pain as he landed to the floor. I should you, Kushina said. However, I need you alive. Kushina nodded to the few hidden Anbu that were stationed around. Gather all root members alive if you can. Stop them before they use the cyanide pill. The young woman said. And get this trash out of my sight. Then time Kushina made her way back to her seat. Inuzuka-san, have you been able to find any leads on the man that attacked me and my husband? Inuzuka shook her head. That's the funny thing, Lady Kushina, there was no scent that could have been followed. It's like he appeared out of thin air. Minato knew who had attacked but had died before he could have told anyone. How he was able to make his will and appoint Kushina Hokage was a mystery. Lady Hokage. Kushina looked up at the person who had called her. What are we going to do about the demon? Kushina growled. Hiruzen placed a hand on her shoulder. What demon are you talking about? The man looked back at her. The demon that you called Naruto. He said. Again Kushina had started growling. Just as she was about to tell the man off, the doors opened and Tsunade had walked in with Jiraiya. You lay one figure on the boy and I'm grounding you to paste, you understand? The blonde said. Sensei. 1 minute Kushina was sitting down, the next she was hugging the blonde woman like there was no tomorrow. Jiraiya, being the pervert that he was writing something down in his notebook. He just could miss the opportune moment like this one. Pervy sage, don't make me ban your books. Kushina said. We're still in a meeting, you know. Tsunade went back to her seat and looked at the man that had wanted her sunned. We do nothing, and I mean nothing. She said in a hard voice. Naruto is a baby, and being a seal mistress myself, I can tell you that the fox is never getting out. Her words had comfortsome. They had heard about Kushina and to the extent the Uzumaki clan's sealing abilities. Don't forget that Minato learned from my mother, importantly from myself as well. More relaxed. Look, the best place for Naruto is by my side. If the Kyuubi ever tries to get out, I'll deal with him myself. It was at this point that Tsunade and Jiraiya could see how tired the young woman was. Will you boy become a ninja? Someone asked. Kushina looked up. Fugaku had asked a question, and to be honest she didn't know. If he is anything like his father or me, Kushina said with a smile, then yes, but only if he wants to. Tsunade stood next to Kushina. She had to do a full medical report to see if the young woman was going to be okay. Maybe we should continue this tomorrow, Kushina. You need rest. Tsunade said. The red-haired woman nodded. Rest could hurt at this point. This meeting is over for now. Meet back here at 10 am. You're all dismissed. Chum, could you come here a sec? I need you to lead a team for something. Chum walked up to Kushina and looked at the young woman. What do you need, ma'am? She asked. Kushina took out a map. I need you to look here, here and here. In Minato's letter he said that he was able to stab the man that had attacked in the side. I need you to find that kunai that has some blood on it. Chum nodded. Well, it hasn't rained lately, so the blood will still be there. Kushina nodded. Minato didn't have time to tell me who he thought it was. All he told me was that he left the weapon close by the battle he had with Kyuubi. If no one had found it, then we can find out who it was. Chum nodded. I'm on. Shouldn't be hard to find. No one was near that area. With that, the head of the Inuzuka clan left. The next person to step up was the head of the Yamanaka clan. I'll get to work on Danzo, let you know if he's telling the truth or not. Kushina nodded. When he had left, Kushina turned to her sensei once more and hugged her. Then she had done something that she haven't done since the death of her parents. She cried for her son, for the village that was attacked that she felt like it was her fault, and finally she cried for her husband of only a year and 10 months. Tsunade just stood there rubbing the young woman back in a comforting manner. Something that a younger Kushina had done to the older the woman. This was Tsunade's way of returning the favor. So how's the little princess doing? Jiraiya asked from his seat in the kitchen, feeding little Naruto from a bottle. He took one look at Tsunade and knew something was wrong. She had the QB forcible removed from her. Tsunade said. That alone would have her. Tsunade sat down after taking Naruto away from his godfather. She'll live thanks to her healing powers. Jiraiya looked at the older blonde and smiled a little as she held the tiny baby. The odd part is the fact that Kushina chakra reserves are still high, higher than it was the last time I checked. Jiraiya only blinked at that. Kushina has always been a powerhouse, but now she's stronger than she was the last time I saw her. Jiraiya nodded. He knew it had something to do with the fox, but no one knew what. Kushina's stronger and faster than most people her age. Was that the real reason Minato wanted her as Hokage? Health-wise she's fine, considering the stress she's going through. I'm glad her blood pressure is normal, but it's her mental health that worries me. He saw the way Kushina was acting in the council chambers. He had never remembered her being that violent. Even during the war. Having to go through what Kushina did and still lived was going to cause problems. I can see why she wanted me here though. Naruto had fallen asleep as the two have talked. The older blonde could hear soft purring sound coming from the baby and couldn't help but smile. For the billionth time she had wished that she had taken care of her son, but there was a war going on and she was only 15. Sometimes she hated Jiraiya, others she wished she could tell him thanks for being there. She looked up to you like a mother after her own was. Jiraiya said. That and the fact you're still her sensei even if she didn't sign the slug's contract. Tsunade nodded. She still had a lot to teach the young woman. Do you think I can still train her? Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders. Don't see why not, it's unheard of, but there's no rule saying that she can't still be in training. Tsunade remembered that. Her grandfather, who she barely remembers, was the first Hokage. He had always said that you will never stop learning, be it from your sensei, or your students, you always learn. If it was to help protect not just your loved ones, but the village as well, his encourage any future Hokage to learn and train, never to give up protecting the lives of other even after a person has stepped down as the leader of the village. While you train her I can train Naruto, Jiraiya said as he looked at the baby in Tsunade's arms. If you turn him into a pervert I'll you. Kushina said from the doorway. She was wearing a gray t-shirt and black sweatpants. She sat down next to Tsunade, who handed Naruto to her. I want everyone in this room to train him. Kushina said. Even if he doesn't want to be a ninja, I want him to have a way to protect himself. Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at the young woman. We'll start his training when he turns 5. They both nodded. However, Kushina's heart was torn. She didn't want her baby to be a ninja, but if he was anything like her and Minato, it was going to be hell to say no to him. So the Whirlpool Prince is the new Hokage, huh? It wasn't a question that he would have liked to have heard. You disappoint me, Danzo. The old man looked up into the eyes of Orochimaru, one of the students of Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was pacing back and forth in front of Danzo's cell. You were to make sure that no one but Sarutobi-sensei was to return as Hokage. Orochimaru turned to the old man. What happened? Danzo didn't say much of anything, not that he could, since Kushina almost crushed his vocal cords. Oh, I forgot, you can't talk anymore. Orochimaru stopped and looked at the old man. Makes me wonder what would have happened if information got out about you halting the message from Whirlpool all those years ago. Danzo glared at the snake. How do I know about that? Simple, I'm the one who told you what was going on. Orochimaru's yellow snake-like eyes looked into Danzo's. Because of you I lost my one chance to get Uzumaki DNA. Orochimaru said as he had opened the gate to Danzo's cell. You messed up for the last time, old man. When Danzo started to scream, Orochimaru was saddened that the cry for help never reached past the old man's cell. The next day, Kushina looked at herself in the mirror, as she brushed out her hair. Today was finally the day that they were going to lay Minato Namikaze to rest. Some people had wondered why it was taking so long. The truth was that there had been a lot of good shinobi that had been lost. It had taken time to gather them all. Not only would she be saying goodbye to her husband, but she would also have to say goodbye to several of her friends as well. She knew that at least one of her friends had a young son that had just turned 12. He had lost his parents during the attack and was also badly wounded across his nose, leaving a scar. The boy didn't have any known relatives in the village either, and he didn't know of anyone else in the family. A soft cry had alerted Kushina that she was thinking too much again and walked over to her little son. Naruto was going to grow up without a father, but that didn't mean that there wasn't going to be any male figures around to help him. Since the death of Minato, Kushina had decided that she wouldn't marry anyone else. She knew that Minato would have wanted her to move on, to find someone else, but she just couldn't bring herself to do it. Even if she did hate him back in their academy days, she still was very much in love with him. The proof of that was in her arms, in the form of her baby, her little Naruto. Naruto had his father blonde hair, but if you look closely enough you can see small traces of red mixed in. While Naruto's eyes were still blue, Kushina wasn't sure if they would change as Naruto grew. Kushina smiled as Naruto held her finger in his small hand. It still amazed her that this tiny baby was hers and Minato's. I'm not letting anyone marry you, my little Naru-chan, Kushina said, but for some reason she said something wrong and little Naruto started to cry out loud. Kushina didn't understand what she had said as she tried calming the little baby. Unknown to the small family, they were being watched. The shadows seemed to glow with yellow snake-like eyes as he watches the young woman and her small baby. He needed DNA of the Uzumaki clan, so that he could study their Kekkei Genkai. He wasn't sure if the rumors were true or not of a powerful doujutsu called the Rinnegan. This bloodline was rumored to be more powerful than the Sharingan and that it can control over all 6 forms of nature chakra. The reason it was only a rumor was that no one in the Uzumaki clan had ever used it. It was nothing more than a rumor that dates back to the start of the clan by a mysterious young man that many say was the 3rd unknown son of the Rikudo Sennin, as people have come to know him as the Sage of 6 Paths. Orochimaru growled. He had to leave soon. He had carefully planned everything that had happened. But that damn brat Namikaze had to ruin everything. He was supposed to have died next to Kushina, who he knew had married the young man. Then Orochimaru could take as much blood from her dead body as he could get, grab the child and leave the village. Orochimaru looked down at the vial he had in his hand. This was all he had to work with. If he could find the strains in the cells to awaken the Rinnegan, then he could try it on the boy. But he needed to work fast. time was wasting and his window was closing, he needed more time. The question was how. Then an idea hit him. He was on his way back to Konoha after he had a look around the battlefield hoping to get some blood samples. He was losing hope when he happened upon one of Minato's kunai. The blood was dry but he could work with it if he hurried. Knowing the red-haired Hokage, she would have sent a party out looking for this weapon hoping to find some clue as to who had attacked her. An idea had suddenly formed in his head. If this worked, not only would he get the DNA he needed but he can also two shinobi with one kunai. Hokage Tower. Later that day, Kushina sat in her seat with her hands on her head. The day had been long and hard for her. As expected, a lot of people had shown up to pay their respect to the lost Hokage. Some had chosen not to listen to her while others did. You think after so many years people could grow on you? The young woman had thought. Maybe it wasn't Yushina-chan. Kushina's eyes had widened and she had nearly fallen out of her chair. Kurama? The young woman had asked. There was a small chuckle that had entered her thought. Who else, dear child? Kushina frowned at that. How? You're in my son now. There was some silence for a few seconds before the fox had talked again. It doesn't matter how young one. What matters is that we need to talk about what had happened. The fox was quiet once more as a knock came to the door. Yes? Kushina asked. The door opened and Orochimaru had walked in. Kushina never did like him. He had smelled too much like snakes and then there was just something about him that had bugged her. Orochimaru was very good at what he does, often called a gifted ninja. However, he was passed over as the fourth Hokage. Whatever the reason, she had to listen to the older man. I was returning from a mission when I came upon the battlefield. Orochimaru said. As I was walking around I happened to have found this. Orochimaru had brought out the kunai that he had found. Kushina's eyes widened. It was one of Minato's and it still had blood on it. Could you show me on the map where you found it? She asked. Orochimaru smiled, not showing the small grin that he had. Yes, my lady. Kushina brought out the map she had on her and the snake-like man had showed her where it had been found. That was right around the area she had Chum and her team look. Did you run into Chum on your way back? She asked. Orochimaru shook his head no. Chum's husband had died in the attack, leaving her two children alone. All right, let's get down to business. Kushina looked the man in the eyes. What do you want? Orochimaru gave her a soft laugh. Just a few drops of your, and the baby's blood. The snake man said. Kushina raised an eyebrow. You heard me, dear lady. I just want to make sure that both you and your baby are going to be healthy is all. The older man laid the kunai down on the desk. I assure you I will do no harm to you or the baby. Kushina sighed and held out her arm. Make it fast, I hate needles. Orochimaru nodded and took out two needles. One was for Kushina, while the other was for Naruto. Once Orochimaru was done, he took the smaller of the two needles and started to draw blood from Naruto. I want you to test the blood on the kunai. Kushina said. I need to know who attacked us and caused Minato to die. Orochimaru bowed his head and then left the office. He had a lot of work to do and so little time. However, one thing was for sure, the baby known as Naruto was going to have one hell of a ride. It was one of those rare days that Kushina had time not only to herself, but also with Naruto. Kushina knew how important it was being the Hokage, but it was harder when she was also a mother. Kushina decided that since it was a nice sunny afternoon that she would go for a walk in the park and see if any of her other friends were around. She hasn't seen much of her friends since the attack. in some way she still feels that it was her fault that so many had died. As she walked through the village, she could hear the soft whispers of the villagers as they looked at the small baby in her arms. The baby was sleeping peacefully in her warmth, and Kushina had wondered if maybe there was something wrong with him. Both Sunad and herself had run scans all the time on the child and had still found nothing wrong with him. Sunad thought that unlike with Kushina and Mito, Naruto chakra corals were adapting to Kurama. As Kushina walked, she had wondered what it would have been like if Minato was still alive. Her idiot, but lovable husband had used the wrong seal and ended upping himself. The death god seal should have been used if there was no other way. Kushina sighed. Maybe he didn't know about the other seal. Kushina was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the fact that several men were following her. Remember, the boss wants the boy unharmed. The leader of the group said. Someone pointed his shoulder. We're not alone. The person said while pointed over to some other buildings. The other people that were following Kushina looked to be Anbu, however there was something not right with what they were wearing. Shit, it's Root. The leader of Orochimaru's group said. We need to act fast. If word had gone out that Danzo's dead, this could get ugly if they're looking for revenge. Still lost in thought, Kushina didn't see the men jumping down as she turned the corner. Kushina Uzumaki, the fifth Hokage of Konoha. The man said, making Kushina look up. The young woman growled out at him. He was wearing a cloud headband with a slash mark over it. Hand over the baby, or we'll be making him an orphan. Kushina backed up only to back into another missing nin, this one from Rain. We don't wish to hurt you, just hand over the baby. Kushina growled and moved away from him. She couldn't them with Naruto in her arms. Where the hell were her guards? Unknown to Kushina at this point was that the division unknown as Root had decided that they had waited long enough. Just one day ago they had tried to free their master from his prison, only to have found out that he was. No one knew why he hasn't been found out earlier, seeing as how Danzo had been dead for little over 5 days. The second and third leaders of Root have met. They had talked it over and had decided that enough was enough. No one had known who was the second in command to Danzo was. That was until he had removed his mask to show that it was none other than Fugaku Uchiha. This has gone on long enough. Konoha deserves a much stronger leader. He had argued. He would have waited a few more years to do this, however, Kushina had forced his hand. Neither his son nor his wife knows of his plan, only Danzo and elders' advisors, before they had gotten fired by the red-haired woman. Word had gotten out that the attack was going to happen that afternoon. When the members saw the new Hokage, they felt disgusted with her being the leader of the village. Then there was her baby. Naruto Uzumaki, the host of the Nine-Tailed Fox that had attacked. It didn't take long to convince some of the non-Root members to help rebuild a new Konoha that would show the world why it should be feared. Of course Fugaku and the Uchiha clan would run things. However, first thing was first. So it wasn't really a surprise that when his men had tried to Kushina and her son, that not only Anbu had attacked them but some of the ninjas that were loyal to not only the Hokage but Kushina as well had started a counter-attack. There was so much chaos in the streets of Konoha that no one knew what had happened. Fugaku could only do one thing, which was to slip into the shadows and let Root get destroyed by the Konoha loyalties. He still had a backup plan, but it would be several more years before he could execute it, but Konoha would be his, like it should have been when his great-grandfather helped build the village. Kushina could hear the battles going on all round her. Damn it, what the is going on? She thought to herself. Has the whole damn village gone insane? Kushina couldn't deal with it right now as she had focus on the men before her. Is that your handiwork? Kushina asked. The man shook his head. No, then whose? She needed someone to blame, might as well be Danzo's root members. She didn't know how right she was when a man wearing a mask of the same program came flying into the alleyway and crashed into a wall. The men were running out of time. They had no choice. Orochimaru might hurt them or worse, but they had no choice. They all attacked at once, causing Kushina to go on the offense. She blocked punches with her legs that were aimed at her and ducked under kunai. Her blocking wasn't really that good, seeing as how her hands were full with the baby. From her place on the ground, Kushina lashed out with a hard kick to one of the men, groin hopping to get him off guard. It worked and Kushina was able to make a run from the opening she had made. She didn't get far and something sharp hit her left knee, causing Kushina to hit the ground. Just as she was about to get up, she was kicked hard in the face, knocking her and Naruto several feet across the road that they now fought in. The men had stopped as they saw the chaos that was taking place. Get the kid and let's get out of here, the leader said. The second man walked up to Kushina, who glared at him. No harm will come to him, just hand over the baby, he said. However, when Kushina still didn't do what he said, he made her look around. The fighting was going on harder than before. Your village needs her leader. Which one are you willing to sacrifice? He asked. Your baby or the village that you have sworn to protect? Kushina looked around. She couldn't protect both. With heavy tears, Kushina stood up, then she kicked the man in the face. Don't you ever think that I would be willing to get up both? Kushina yelled. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Kushina yelled out, drawing several shadow clones to her side. What had shocked them the most was the fact that Kushina didn't use any hand signs. Attack! Kushina yelled out to her clones. The clones had started to attack the two men at full force, seeing as how they didn't have a baby in their arms. Two of the men had been fighting, the third was nowhere to be seen. A second later, as she had turned to leave, she had felt something enter her back. You have forgotten the first rule of shinobi, the man said as he had removed his blade from her back. He had made sure that she would live, though she would be in pain for some time. Never turn your back on an enemy. He then took the baby just as the clones went up in smoke. Come on, we have a baby to deliver. As they had walked away, Kushina could hear the cries of both the villagers and Naruto. Kurama, Kushina said in a weak voice. I need your help. However, she didn't hear anything from the fox. She had tried getting up off the ground, but the pain was too much. This wasn't going well for the young Hokage. Her village and her son needed her. With a cry of pain, Kushina slowly got up and looked at the men retreating backs. If there was ever a time to use the Harem, now would be a good time. Reaching into her wristband, she pulled out a small needle. This was known as senbon, and unlike her husband's kunai, they were better to carry around because of their smaller size. On each one, though, there was a special seal that she and Minato have been working on. This seal was what allowed both Kushina and Minato to end up with their nicknames, even though Kushina had two more. But the name Red Death was the most famous among the ninja world, and much like the Yellow Flash, she was hated by several villagers for her part in the war. Throwing the small needle, she quietly ran through several hand signs. In a red flash, Kushina was before the men that had taken her son, and with a cry of Rinnegan, twin attacks ended up hit their targets. This was another move that Minato had taught his beloved. However, unlike with Minato's, Kushina's Rinnegan explodes when it hits. As the two bodies hit the ground, that man holding the crying Naruto had backed up. Put the baby down and surrender, Kushina said coldly. Otherwise you'll die a slow and painful death. The leader did have any other choice. There was always a backup plan, and in this case it was venom from a deadly snake. It was slow acting, but the medic that worked for Orochimaru had the anti-venom to counter it. Taking out a small needle covered in the poison, he poked the baby in the arm. Naruto started crying like crazy. He then did something that no one should do. He dropped the poor crying baby to the ground. Naruto stopped crying and Kushina was seeing red, and in another flash the man was dead. Kushina kneeled next to Naruto to see if he was breathing. He was, but it was very slow. "Shina, you need to get him to the hospital," Kurama finally said. "You bastard, I asked for your help." Kushina yelled back. Tears were in her eyes as she gently picked up her baby, making sure to brace his head and neck. "I'm sorry I couldn't help you, I'm limited to how far I can talk to you," the fox said. "The baby been poisoned, we need to get him and you to the hospital fast." Kushina wasn't worried about herself. Taking out another senbon, she had thrown it to where the hospital was. She just hoped that she can get there in time. Author note: I could be a jerk and end it here, but seeing as how I'm late with my update, I'll give you a special double-size chapter. Author note end. Several hours have passed and the village had once more calmed down. Kushina was reading reports after reports about what had happened, as for once was glad that she had fired the old hags that had once been Hiruzen and Minato advisors. She still wondered why he never fired 'em though. "Kushina, you dummy, stay focus," Kushina told herself. It had been touch and go with both her and Naruto, but thanks to being the host of Kurama, a part of his healing had somehow mixed with her genes, caused her to have a fast healing ability. It wasn't as fast as when she was a host, but still faster than a normal human's. Naruto was going to be okay as well, seeing as how he had the same powers as her. However, Rin and Tsunade had both talked her into letting him be where he need, in the children's ward at the hospital. She trusted both women with her life, seeing as how that they had taken her in right as she had gotten to the front door. As Kushina was healing, she had asked for the reports about what had gone on around the village and why Root was attacking. Kakashi was there to make the report as well as Might Guy. "Would someone please explain to me, was the hell Root had attacked the village it was sworn to protect?" Kushina asked several of her ninja. "Mom, it seems that there was an oversight," Guy said. Kushina looked at him and shuddered, though damn eyebrows had to go. It would have seemed that a Danzo Shimura was found dead in his cell. Kushina looked at him. She never gave the order to have him, she needed him alive. Damn it, Kushina cursed. What else could go wrong? It was at this time that Kakashi handed her another report that had just came in. This one was handed to her by Asuma Sarutobi, the youngest son of Hiruzen. "I'm sorry that I'm late, Lady Hokage." He said. This caused Kakashi and Guys to raise their eyebrows. "Been spending time with Kurenai, I see," Kakashi said. The silver-haired young man then ducked under a punch that had been thrown his way. Kushina sighed. "Of all people. Knock it off, you two, or you'll be cashing Tara for the rest of your lives." The two had stopped fighting and looked at their leader. "Right, I'm sorry about that, Mom," Asuma said. He then looked at his report. "We did a check to see who dead in the fight and those that had been injured in the fighting." Kushina didn't like the sound of this. It would seem that several people have been missing for some time now. Kushina blinked at that. Several teams, as well as civilians, have been reported missing. However, what is more disturbing though is that fact that a total of 60 people have gone missing in the last few months. Why was she just hearing about this now? It doesn't make any sense. What was worst was the fact that if they started to investigate now, any trail that they had would have been lost. Who was the last person in charge of this? Kushina asked. Asuma looked down at the report. When he looked up, she saw something in his eyes. That would be Orochimaru, he said. What the hell? Kushina thought as she saw the look in his eyes. She didn't know why, but she felt hatred from Asuma when he said that, but why? Why would Asuma hate Orochimaru? Get him in here, I want to know why he never brought this up. Kushina said. She was about to get up when she felt pain in her lower back. Not tonight, young lady, Tsunade said as she walked in. Sensei, how's Naruto? Kushina asked. Tsunade looked at her and gave a small smile. Sleeping, I got Rin and one other person watching him tonight. Kushina had a worried look in her eyes. Tsunade smiled. She walked over to the redhead and sat down next to her. He'll be okay, Kushina, Tsunade said, taking the young woman's hand. Kyuubi had started his healing the moment he hit the ground. Sure, there was some bruising, but that baby is just like his mother. Kushina nodded. She just hoped that Naruto can forgive her one day if he ever found out that she was almost kidnapped. One of the nurses watching Naruto just looked at him with hatred. Because of this boy, she had lost her fiancé when the fox had attacked. Oh, she knew that the baby wasn't the fox, but she was one of the few people in Konoha to that his mother was once the host of the fox itself. I'm going to get some coffee, you want one? She asked, not wanting to be near that thing any longer than she needed to. Rin looked up from reading a book and nodded. When the nurse left, she walked over to the baby and sat down next to him. You look him, Rin said. She started petting his hair and he could hear a soft purring sound coming from him. Must be most likely the fox's doing, Rin thought. She reached into her pocket and fingered the vial that had, whatever it was that Orochimaru gave her. I'm sorry, little one, but my mother is very sick, and Orochimaru promised to cure her of her illness. Tears filled her eyes as she cleaned a spot on his arm. Taking the syringe, she shakily placed it on his arm and poked him. As soon as whatever it was that was in Naruto's blood system had sent a shockwave throughout the baby's body, his chakra flared up so fast that Rin was on her back before she knew what had happened. Sheena! Kyuubi had yelled out. Something's wrong with the kit. She could hear the panic in his voice and was up before she even knew what was going on and had ran down the hallway to the nursery. Tsunade followed after her as she tried to catch up with her student. When they had gotten to the room, they had been forced back by the pressure that came from Naruto's chakra flare. What the hell happened in here? Kushina had all but yelled out. A cry for help made Kushina and Tsunade turn their head to look at Rin. The chakra flare had stopped by this time and Kushina walked over to Rin. However, as she got closer, she could see something in her hand that made the red-haired young woman seeing red. Kushina picked up Rin by the front of her shirt and held her. Why? It was just one word, but it made Rin cry. He promised that he would cure her if I did this, Rin said. Kushina looked at Rin. Who? Rin couldn't hold back her tears. If she told her, then Orochimaru would her. My mother, Rin said. Kushina slammed Rin into a wall, still holding her by her shirt. That's not what I asked, she said. I want to know who forced you into doing this. Rin could hear the growling in her voice. I can't heal her, Rin plead. As Kushina was dealing with Rin, Tsunade was checking over Naruto. She was shocked to learn that the baby was beyond fine as she ran a scan over him. All the bruising were now gone, as if they was never there. On top of that, it looked like most of his baby fat was gone. She had to do a blood test to make sure if Naruto was really okay, but for some reason she couldn't shake this feeling from him. It was a feeling she hadn't felt since she was a little girl. She felt warmth that only had came from one other man. That man had long ago passed away, in a fight with one other founding member of Konoha. That man was her grandfather, the first Hokage. Shaking off the feeling, Tsunade turned to Kushina, who had Rin in a death grip. He's fine. Tsunade, she holding her grandson close. More than fine. He's in perfect health, maybe even more so than when he was born. Kushina turned to look at her. Kurama, you better have good news for me. Kushina told the fox. Sheena, whatever it was that was injected into the kit, it had woken a long-lost bloodline. Kurama said. I'm still working on it, I will tell you what I know as soon as I am done. Kushina held Rin to the wall, wanting to smash the girl's face in. However, she needed a name. 2 bloodlines have been awakened. How the hell does he have the Mokuton bloodline? Kushina eyes widen. The Mokuton. Tsunade turned to look at Kushina. That was the bloodline of her grandfather. No one in her family knew who to do the things that he had done. However, what Kushina heard from Kurama next made her weak in the knees. Holy shit, it awaken, it's not possible. Sheena, your kit, no, your family's bloodline has finally woken up after all these years. Kurama said. Naruto has the Rinnegan. That was it, she had to sit down. Too long thought dead bloodline has awakened in Naruto. It was something that has never happened before, even when the Uzumaki clan was first starting out. She had read the records predated back to the formation of the clan a long time ago. It was something that she wanted to know about her family. She learned about the Rinnegan through these records. What the clan doesn't know is that the records at first were written by the founder of the clan. That founder was at first rumored to be an unknown son of the Sage of Six Paths. The rumors were only half right. The unknown child was indeed a child of the sage, but wasn't a son, but a daughter, a very beautiful daughter that was painted on her 25th birthday. The Rinnegan was the power that had helped form the known ninja world. It had been locked in the Uzumaki bloodline for so long that there was only one known record of anyone ever opening it. That person was her cousin, Nagato Uzumaki. She can't remember when the last time she had heard from him. Maybe Jiraiya knows where he was. Letting go of Rin, Kushina sat down. This was too much to take in. Kushina looked up to see Tsunade. You never did tell Minato that you were his mother. Kushina said. Tsunade turned her back on her. How is it possible for the Mokuton to have awakened in his blood when neither you, nor your brother was able to? Tsunade turned back to look at Kushina. That was when it hit her. It was forced. They both said at the same time. There was only one person in all of Konoha that could do that. Rin, given the fact that Naruto seems okay, I'll let you go, but you have to tell me who gave you whatever it was. Rin looked away. It was possible that her mother was already dead, but what if Orochimaru can cure her? With a deep sigh, she knew what her mother would want her to do. What Rin said next didn't really surprise either of the women. It was Orochimaru. If there was anyone that didn't feel that power surge, they were either dead, or in a coma. The smile on Orochimaru's face said it all. He had done it. The perfect way to learn all the jutsu, and it was thanks to one little boy. Of course he had to kidnap the boy again so he could study him, but for now he'll have to settle on another child that had seemed to adopted to the genes of the first Hokage as well. He would try the Uzumaki cells, but he didn't want to risk his last test subject. Just as he was getting up to study another body, there came a loud banging noise from the heavily guarded steel door. Go away, I'm busy, he ordered. He turned back to the body and was about to cut it open when another bang ranged through the room. However, this time a dent was made. Orochimaru only knew of one person that can do that. But she was out of the village, so it could be her. However, he was wrong when the door went flying past his head and crashed into a wall. Sunad walked into the room dusting off her hands. Hey snake breath, been a while. Orochimaru eyes widen as he saw Sunad followed by Kushina, Jiraiya and Hiruzen Sarutobi walk in behind her. Orochimaru, you're under arrest. Kushina said. You can either fight and lose or you can turn yourself in. Kushina cracked her knuckles, proving once again that her sensei was. Personally, I hope you fight. Kushina said. Orochimaru didn't know what to do. However, Kushina didn't give him any time to talk as she jumped at him in blinding speed. With a chakra-covered fist, Kushina had punched Orochimaru hard in the face, nearly breaking his nose. The choice was made, he had to fight back. Getting up, Orochimaru dusted off his shirt. Sunad punches harder. Kushina growled and ran at him again, only this time Orochimaru was ready and kicked the young woman in the chest, sending her back. Kushina got up and waited for the next move. Orochimaru, Sunad, and Jiraiya may have had all the same teacher, but over the years each one had came up with their own fighting style. Kushina studied the moves in Orochimaru fighting style and knew how deadly it could be. The moves were made to be fast and hard to counter, that was why Kushina made a style all her own. It was something that a young Uzumaki had to do, discover the best fighting style suited to you. Like any other style, it had taken her years to fully master, and she was only halfway there. She even had a weapon that fitted well to the style. The style uses her natural agility, flexibility and speed. It was a counter to the snake style in every way. Reaching for the pouches at her sides, Kushina took out a gauntlet with 3 blades, slipping it on over her gloves, and with a snap the weapon was in place. 3 long blades were now on the back on each hand. So you're going to use the fox style, huh? Orochimaru said. He brought out his sword, the Kusanagi. It's a perfect match for your snake style and you know it. Kushina said. She had fought people with her style that had used styles that were similar to the snake style before, and she came out with little to no injury at all. Kushina ran at Orochimaru once more. The snake was ready for her, only this time he used his sword in hopes of cutting the young woman. Kushina blocked the sword with the back of her blade, catching Orochimaru off guard with allowed Kushina to slash him across his face. 3 bloody slash marks that went diagonal from the right side of his face to the left side, all 3 slash marks missing his eyes. Orochimaru didn't scream, he didn't have time to, as Kushina pushed her attack, this time moving the sword out of the way and slashed at his chest. Again this left 3 slash marks, this time from his left shoulder to his right hip. Kicking his back, Kushina moved out of the way when Orochimaru swung his sword trying to catch her neck. Strike 1. Kushina said as she blocked, spun around Orochimaru and once again slashed him, this time in the back. Orochimaru tried to elbow her in the head, but Kushina was already on the move, this time slashing at his legs. Strike 2. Kushina said. Orochimaru had tried to fight back. How the hell was he losing to this woman? He was a Sannin, for crying out loud, one of the 3 strongest ninja in the village. He should be kicking her all over the place. That was when he realized it. Kushina was also practicing. No matter how strong she had gotten, she would only glow stranger. It didn't help that she had studied under not only Sunad but several others as well. He blocked a strike from Kushina and again he was rewarded with another slash cut. This time it was his left arm. What wrong, old man? Kushina said. Your old age catching up to you. Orochimaru kicked out, but again he was no match for Kushina as she just brought up her blades and they had gone right through his foot. Strike 3. Kushina said this time as Orochimaru swung at her. Orochimaru had known he had made a mistake. It had caused him dearly as Kushina caught his arm, and with one swing sliced off his arm at the elbow. This time Orochimaru did scream out in pain as he fell to the floor, hold what should have been his arm. "You're out," Kushina said as she sheathed her weapons in their pouches. Orochimaru looked up, and as he did so Kushina slammed him with a chakra sealing seal. This had drained him of his chakra just enough to end his career as a ninja. "You are hereby banished from Konoha. If you ever set foot in this village or fire country ever again, I will you," Kushina said. "Be thankful that Hiruzen and Jiraiya asked me to spare your life, otherwise you would have been joining your family." Kushina walked up to Tsunade, who was looking over a woman in her late 30s. "Did you find her?" she asked. Tsunade nodded her head. She had been dead for about a week now. Kushina then looked at Orochimaru. "Hiruzen, did you find anyone else?" The former Hokage looked at Kushina. His heart was broken when he had seen all the dead bodies. Among them were mostly children. How could the boy he had so much hope for do this? Orochimaru was once a gentle boy who hated war and death. "Only one is alive, however, just barely," Hiruzen said. Orochimaru got up. He slowly made his way out of the door, followed by Tsunade. "I want that trash out of his in an hour," Kushina said. She then turned to Hiruzen. "I still don't think this is a good idea," Kushina said. She saw the look in the former Hokage's eyes. She knew what he was thinking and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It wasn't your fault," Kushina said in a soft voice. "I should have done more for him," Hiruzen said. Kushina hugged the old man in a soft embrace. She always did like Hiruzen, there was just something about him. It was that something that made him the best Hokage that Konoha Eve had. As she let him go, several ninjas had come in and looked around. They had seen Orochimaru being dragged out of the place. His one student, Anko Mitarashi, watched. She couldn't believe that he had turned traitor. That was until she saw the horror that was in the rooms. She wanted to start crying. Kushina saw her and her heart nearly broken. Walking up to the teen, she knelt down and looked at her. "I'm going to appoint you a new sensei, one that is a lot better than Orochimaru." Anko looked up. "Who?" she asked. Kushina just smiled. "Why, me, of course," Kushina said, making Anko eyes widen. Jiraiya was in the room when she had said this and gowned. "Oh great, just what we needed, another Kushina," he said, and then his world went black as Kushina had hit him over the head with a frying pan. "Mom, your 1 o'clock has arrived," Shizune said from the door. Kushina looked up from her paperwork. "She's early, Fugaku must be getting to her," Kushina thought. "Send her in, Shizune." The dark-haired woman nodded. Just as the door opened again, Kushina made several shadow clones. "Keep working on the paperwork," Kushina told them. "I want them done by the time school is out." The clones nodded and went to work. Kushina looked up just in time to see Mikoto Uchiha seat down in one of the chairs. "Having fun, Shina-chan?" she asked. Kushina frowned. "I remember the time you screamed out that you would become the first female Hokage," Mikoto said. Kushina sighed. "Then that same day you beat up any boy that had made fun of you." Kushina sighed and brought out a folder. "I'm sorry, Mi-chan, but I am busy today for any small talk," Kushina said. "We'll have to catch up on things at Hinata's birthday party in a few days." Both women smiled at that. Kushina opened the file that was marked with Itachi's name. Kushina read his scores and the comments that the teachers made. She flipped page after page. "The problem I have with Itachi graduating early is that I have no one to train him," Kushina said. Mikoto nodded. She understood that. "However, there may be one person that can do it." Kushina said. She brought out other folder. This one was marked Shisui Uchiha. We have one graduate this year as well. Kushina said. Again, I have an instructors that could really help. Kushina was at a loss. Shisui passed his tests with flying colors, however, because he was the only one that had passed the test that year, he was placed on a waiting list. He could still train, but he could only do D ranks missions until he was placed on a team. Then a though came to her. Anko had yet to be placed on a team. Because of this, she wasn't able to make Chunin, and since there wasn't a war going on, she wasn't able to get a field promotion. Kushina looked at the files once more. Itachi and Shisui were the best of friends, almost brothers. They could get along nicely. The problem was Anko. Because of her sensei, she was mistreated to the point she wanted to break some necks. Kushina tried all that she could to keep the young woman calm, but she was failing. Shizune. Kushina called out. The dark-haired young woman walked in. Yes, ma'am. She asked. I need you to summon Anko Mitarashi, Itachi Uchiha, Shisui Uchiha and Tsunade. Kushina said. Shizune nodded and left the office to do what her leader needed to. Mi-chan, I'm going to grant permission for Itachi's graduation. Mikoto smiled at her friend. As you can guess, I'll be placing him on the same time as Anko and Shisui. Mikoto frowned at that. She held nothing against them, it was just that Fugaku wanted to train both Shisui and Itachi. Why Tsunade? She asked. I won't lie to you, Mi-chan. I don't trust Fugaku. Kushina said as she crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. I know you would never betray me, but someone told that masked bastard I was due to give birth. Mikoto sighed. Mikoto didn't tell anyone but Fugaku about Kushina, and then the night that she gives birth, Fugaku takes her out of the village for a romantic night out. Something that they could have done in the village. I understand, Shina. Mikoto said, using Kushina nickname. It was a nickname that only her closest friends have ever called her. I don't blame you. She turned away and looked out the window. I don't trust Fugaku either. She said. Just as Kushina is about to say something, the door opened and several people walked in. Mom, as I was getting Itachi, I was asked to give you this. Shizune said as she handed Kushina a note. I think Naru-kun got in trouble again. Kushina growled. She opened the note and she growled even more. It was quite funny how a 4-year-old was able to do what he did. Itachi said. As it turned out, Naruto had pranked several teachers. Kushina didn't want to know, so she didn't ask. However, she would have to talk to her son later that night. Let's get down to business then, shall we? Kushina said, and the others nodded. Tsunade wanted to get back to the hospital as soon as possible. Sensei, I called you here to ask you for a favor. I need a sensei for Shisui and Anko. Anko looked up at her sensei. Was she being pushed aside again? Anko has much to learn, and with my duties as Hokage, I can't really train her as I like. Shisui, on the other hand, had just graduated as is in need of a sensei. Tsunade looked at the two teens. She could see the skills in Shisui. He held himself with a confidence that was unlike any of the other Uchihas. She then looked at Anko. The young woman was looking away from Kushina, and she could understand why. 4 years was a long time to be training under one person. However, because she wasn't placed on a time from her time since had graduated, she couldn't take place in the Chunin exams. That brings me to the reason why I asked for Itachi. Kushina said, bring Tsunade out of her thoughts. I have granted his request for an early graduation. Tsunade didn't need to think anymore. Within several months, Anko could become Chunin, and after that, she could take the test for Junin. With Shisui and Itachi's score they could as make the ranks in a short amount of time. Tsunade nodded. She liked the idea, her team would be the fastest team to have every make the ranks. Even if they were still young. I expect, Tsunade said. I'll have Shizune fill in for me from time to time. Kushina smiled and nodded at her sensei. She then turned to Itachi. You still have to take the tests, however seeing as how you have very high marks I don't think you'll have a problem. Itachi bowed to the red-haired woman. Thank you Aunt Kushina, Itachi said. Just as Kushina was going to say something else Shizune once again entered the room. Mom, I hate to bother you, there a massager from Kumogakure who wishes to see you. Kushina growled, how dare those bastards. She was about to tell whoever it was to get the out of her village, however what Shizune said next stopped her. They wish for a peace treaty. Kushina was still growling. I don't like to be kept waiting Lady Hokage. The massager had said. Kushina was about to say something, however Hiruzen had came into the room. He took one look at Kushina and Tsunade and he understood. This was an important meeting and he was needed. Let's get down to business then. Kushina said. She didn't like this one bit. It was because of those bastards that she had lost her homeland and now all of a sudden they wished for a peace treaty. Over her dead body they wanted something in return. Over the next few hours things have gotten out of hand and like little children Kushina and the ambassador had started calling each other names. Hiruzen and Tsunade had to stop them from attacking each other so that they can get this meeting done with. I suggest that we break for the day. Hiruzen said. As you can see Kushina is very busy with the going on of the village. Your unexpected visit had set things back. The Cloud Ambassador sighed. Truth was he had another mission to do and he couldn't do it in a damn office. Very well, we'll continue this tomorrow. He got up and walked over to the door. I hope you don't act like a child then Lady Hokage. With that he was out the door. Kushina was growling. How dare they? Kushina yelled out. After all these years those bastards wish for a treaty. Yeah right, knowing they're after something. Kushina said as she looked out the window. Kakashi, I want you to watch him closely. Kushina said as the sliver-haired young man dropped down from the ceiling. Yes ma'am. It was later than it should have been, Kushina sighed. She didn't pick Naruto up like she should have. Luckily she had someone ready to take him home and help him with his studies. She just hoped that he wasn't turning him into a pervert. I still can't believe that I let him get to me. Kushina said. It has been years Kushina. Tsunade said. Maybe their new Hokage wanted to be more peaceful after what you had done during the war. Kushina nodded. She didn't really like what she did. While she didn't any civilians like they had done to her village Kushina had nearly wiped Kumo off the face of the planet. It was the first and only time she had used a Bayudama. A Bayudama is a highly powerful attack between a Bayu and a Jinchuriki. A lot of people don't know this but the Rinnegan, the move that was invented by Minato Namikaze was based on this attack after seeing his girlfriend lose it on the battlefield. Only a few people know of that happening and that she was the former host of QB. It had never stopped them before. Kushina said. They have both the 2 and 8 tails as well. Kushina said. Soon tomorrow I want Jiraiya with us. Made if I throw in a way for their host to have full control over their hosts we can finally end this damn feud. Kushina knew that it was going to be hard, but the war had taken its toll on the 5 great nations and maybe it was time for a change. That wasn't too much to ask for, was it? A world where children could grow without having to fight in a war. One could only hope. We have to stop by my office first, Naruto. Kushina said as she and Naruto walked down the street. I have to give Sensei and her team a new mission. Naruto blinked at that. I know it's Sunday, but it was the latest that I can start the mission, and it's an important one at that. Naruto nodded in understanding. He really didn't want to go to the party, but Hinata came to his and gave him that nice book on jutsus. Naruto wasn't sure to get Hinata though, and had gotten her a book on herbs and gardening. Even if she can't read it yet though, she can when she's older. When they had gotten to the tower, Naruto was asked to wait out in Shizun's office. Inside her office, Kushina handed Tsunade a folder. If you can, I would like for you and your team to leave tonight, Sensei. Tsunade looked over the file. Her eyes widen a little. Are you serious about the sighting? Tsunade asked. Kushina nodded. He may not remember me, but I need you to go and talk to him. Kushina said. Hand him this little. Kushina handed Tsunade a scroll. That is the family seal on it. He'll know what to do when he sees it. Hard to believe that several years ago she herself was given Kushina orders, but now the young woman before her was the one giving orders. Was this how Jiraiya felt when Minato surpassed him? Yes, ma'am. Tsunade said. Hard to believe that he's alive. Kushina nodded. There were so little of us that survived, but anyways, you better get going before his trail gets cold. The last report that Jiraiya gave me says that he was going to start a rebellion with Am. Tsunade growled. She had unfinished business in a megacore, namely to beat the crap out of old name Hanzo the Salamander. You need to hurry, do whatever it takes, but you need to aid him. Kushina said. Please, Tsunade, he's the only family I got left. Tsunade nodded. She had to hurry and gather her team. Within minutes, Tsunade and her team was off to Rain Country. Maybe with a little luck, she can finish what her team had started years ago. Well, look who finally decided to show up. A young woman about Kushina age said as she welcomed both Kushina and Naruto. Hello, Rain. Kushina said as she hugged her friend. Naruto, why do you go see the other children while the adults talk, okay? Kushina said. Naruto waved at them and walked around back to where the other children were. Like most children, they were already engaged in a game and Naruto had to wait until it ended. Troublesome. A voice said right next to Naruto. You're here too, huh? He asked. He had a pineapple hairstyle and lazy eyes. This was Shikamaru Nara. Unlike most kids, he didn't do much of anything except lay down on the grass and watch the clouds. Mom made me you. Naruto asked. Same. Hinata nice enough, wonder why she doesn't have many friends. Shikamaru said. Naruto shrugged. Probably because she's so shy. Another voice joined them, and the kid sat down next to Shikamaru. Naruto could help but wonder why the kid was so fat. Then he remembered something. You're Chuji Akamaiki, right? Naruto asked. Naruto knew that the Akamaiki clan was big in size, it had something to do with their bloodline or something like that, but he can't help but wonder if it was healthy for him to be like that. Okay, sorry I almost called you fat. Naruto said. He saw the look in Chuji's eyes and with a quick hand gave Chuji his secret stash of chips. The angry look in Chuji's left him as soon as the chips hit his hand. Hey, thanks. Chuji said as he opened the bag. Dodged that one. Naruto thought. Naruto looked around as most of his classmates were here, even though he didn't remember the names right now. Looks like they're done. Naruto said as he got up and was about to walk over to them when he spotted another kid. This one was wearing a long trench coat and was wearing sunglasses. What was odd though was the fact that he was standing few feet away from the others. Naruto didn't know his name, but he was sure it started with an S. Naruto decided that it couldn't hurt to talk to him and walked up to him. Hey, Naruto said. Looks like the whole class came here. The kid didn't say anything. Naruto sighed. His mother had told him to be nice to everyone and that was what he was planning. Looks like they're having fun, why don't you join in? Again nothing. I can't. The kid finally said after a few seconds. They're all afraid of me. Naruto could only blink at him. Why's that? Naruto asked. The kid held out his hand, a few seconds passed and a bug of some kind came out. These are my Kikaichu, the kid said. Not many people like bugs. Naruto could disagree with him, he himself happened to like the bugs known as praying mantis. After a few minutes of talking to the kid Naruto now knew as Shino, Naruto joined the others in a game of ninja freeze tag. In this game everyone was it. They can only carry around one weapon, which in this case was a foam ball. If you got it you were frozen. A teammate has to tap you in order to unfreeze you. If you got hit 3 times then you were dead, and then out of the game. If there was only one person left on the team then the other team would win. So who are the captains? Naruto asked. Everyone looked to Hinata. Okay, that one, but what about the other captain? Looks like they're finally having fun. Rain said as she and the other mothers watched their children play. Kushina nodded. About time the runt made some friends, right Kushina? Chum asked as she walked up next to her. Yes, and he better behave himself. Kushina said with a smile. Hey, who's the girl with a duck-shaped hair? Naruto asked, causing the other to look at him. Naruto, that's Sasuke. A girl with blonde hair said. And he's a boy. Naruto blinked. There was no way that Sasuke could be a boy, and look that girly. Man, you are dumb. A kid with brown hair said. Even I knew he was a boy. Naruto growled as grabbed some cake that had been placed out earlier and then asked. What was that dog breath? The kid whose name was Kiba looked at Naruto and said. You're stupid in thinking that Sasuke was a girl. Kiba said as he was about to eat some cake. However, Naruto had other things on his mind as he had thrown the cake into Kiba's face. I may be stupid but at least I know how to eat cake. Naruto said. Kiba growled right back at Naruto and had thrown his cake at Naruto, who ducked and the cake ended up hitting Ino Yamanaka instead. The blonde looked at Naruto, and then at Kiba as Naruto had pointed him out with a smile. When you have this many groups of children then you know it was going to happen sooner or later. Later came as some had yelled out. Food fight. And the next thing you know the children had started throwing food at each other. Though out the food fight no one seemed to have hit Hinata, who seemed to be laughing a little at the mess her friends were causing. Hey Sheena. Someone had called out and no sooner as she did she had gotten hit with a plant of cake, which was thrown by Mikoto of all people. Now it's a party. She had called out. Everyone joined in as mothers hit their children with whatever was laying around. Still throw it all. Hinata, who was the birthday girl, was never hit. What the hell is going on out here? Hiyashi Hyuga asked as he stepped out of his office. Everyone stopped of a second to look at him, and for some reason he didn't like that one little bit. Then as one everyone that could, including Hinata, had thrown something at the head of the Hyuga clan. It was late at night by the time that the guest had to clean the backyard. Everyone was dead tired and instead of going home Rain had told them that it would be fun to have a sleepover. Kushina looked at her friend. What are you 10? She asked. Truth was she didn't want to walk home carrying her son. Oh, come on Sheena, have some fun. Rain said. Kushina gave her a look. I just did thanks to my son. Said was sleeping soundly with his head on Sasuke's shoulder. The youngest Uchiha head was in the lap or Ino, whose head was on a pink-haired girl's head. All the mothers looked at the children was in one form or other was sleeping on someone. Does anyone have a camera? Yoshino Nara had asked. Everyone looked at her and could only smile. Unknown to them, it was the best birthday party that Hinata would ever have. She made a lot of friends this day and she even got to play the games she wanted. The added bonus was that she could be a kid. It was truly a day to remember. Unknown to Hinata, it would in more ways than one. All the children for the time being were moved to the dojo of the Hyuga household. Seeing as how it was a sleepover, somewhat everyone was asleep spread out. Naruto was sleeping next to Sasuke and as he turned over smacked Sasuke in the face with his hand. Sasuke in turn had kicked Naruto's foot. Everything was nice and quiet until someone who wasn't supposed to be there had snuck past one guard behind. He had slit his throat. The man that had snuck in had a cloud headband and was moved pretty fast towards the dojo. He had a secondly mission to finish, seeing as how the Hokage was taking too long to decide if they would enter in the peace treaty. When he got to the dojo, he carefully opened the door and he had easily spotted his target. The young purple-haired girl was sleeping peacefully next to two other girls, one with pink hair and one with yellow hair. Too easy, he thought as he made his way to the little girl. After carefully picking her up, he made for the door. After leaving the dojo and closing the door, he made a run for it, not sure if anyone else would have waken up. Just before he could clear the gate, a voice had stopped him. Sarai was right. The voice belonged to Kushina Uzumaki. The guy knew he was in trouble. Kumo is still up to their old tricks. Well, I got something to say to you, Kushina said as she stepped out of the shadows. Tricks are for kids and you're not welcome in my village. Believe it. The man from Kumo only felt pain as Kushina had beaten him with an inch of his life. Hisahi watched as Kushina took care of the man that had tried to kidnap his daughter, who was now resting in his arms. Thank you, Lady Hokage, Hisashi said. After a sound beating, Kushina picked the man up. I want you to send a massage to your Raikage, Kushina said, shaking the man so that he would stay awake. You tell him to get his fat down here, then we'll talk about a peace treaty. If he doesn't, I will destroy Kumo, just like I should have done during the war. The ambassador could only nod. Kushina had then thrown him into the wall. After he sends the message, put him in a holding cell, Kushina said as she turned to walk away. Kushina was inching for a fight. If the Raikage wanted a war, he would have sent more than one man. Kushina had a feeling that it was going to be a setup, so she used a shadow clone to fool the guy into thinking she was asleep with the others. Kumo went too far this time. It was time she settle things once and for all. She wanted revenge for what they had done to her village, to her, but most of all to the false they had promised in a peace treaty. Enough was enough. That village needed to be taught a lesson. Kushina had heard the reports coming in as the Raikage had forced his way into Konoha without the proper paperwork being done. This had sent the gate guard to the hospital in a hush to save his life. What the Raikage did would have been called an act of war. Kushina had told her staff to stay away from the Raikage and let him through. Hiruzen was in a doined room where he wouldn't be hit. The flying doors that Kushina would sure happen. She also had moved her stuff back and had the paperwork she had been working on in a box and had several shadow clones take it home to finish earlier. The Raikage wasn't alone. He had two other people with him. One was reported to be Abi, a sword master and the host of the Eight Tails. What had her troubled was the fact that Abi was a host that seemed to have gotten along with his Bayu. Something that she herself had done once before until Kurama was forcibly removed. The second person was a young sandy blonde-haired girl about 13 years old. She had her hair in a style that seemed like a cat's tail. So he had bought both of them, has he? Kushina asked herself. That could be trouble. Naruto not even trained yet, and if they spot him, she didn't get the chance to finish her though, as her office door was punched off its hinges. The door was sent flying out the door where it crashed into other building. Well, at least you knocked, Kushina said. However, I don't like the fact that you not only sent my door into other building but sending several of my ninja to the hospital. The man that had sent the door flying looked at the young redhead. Kushina Uzumaki, I should head your head, for what you did. Kushina crossed her arms. Attacking the ambassador for reasons of an unfair treaty. Kushina raised an eyebrow. So that his game. Stop being so full of yourself, you old fart. Kushina said. You know damn well what you ordered your so-called ambassador to do. Kushina stood up and slammed a folder down on her desk. Heed to members of the Hyuga clan and tried to kidnap Hinata Hyuga. Kushina turned around and looked at him. So don't come here demanding anything. The Raikage, whom name was A, was looking at the red-haired woman. He couldn't remember, but he had this feeling he knew her from somewhere. It wasn't until his little brother said something that had him seeing red. Holy shirt, it's the Red Death. A looked to his brother. He then turned back to Kushina. You. A yelled. You caused the death of my father. Kushina looked at her nails, then back at the order man. She hated people like this. They thought that they were so powerful that nothing could touch them. She was going to prove him wrong. And he caused the death of thousands when you and your little brother attacked Whirlpool. Irby looked down. He had hatred attacking a village that wasn't in a war. Hell, the Second Great Ninja War started because of the attack on Whirlpool. Something that his father was never able to understand. So that is what this about. A said. You want revenge for your tiny little village. Kushina growled out. This man was going to find out the hard way why she was feared during the Third War. No, it's not about that, or the fact your father had ordered my kidnapping. Kushina said. It's about putting a village of holes in their place. A looked at Kushina. Was she planning another war? So you're going to attack my village again? He asked. If she answered yes, he would her here and now, then have his two Jinchuriki attack and make Konoha a burning rumble. Wouldn't dream of it, Kushina said, going back to looking at her nails. The way I see it, you have one of two choices. Kushina looked up at him. 1. We can act out age, sit down together and talk about a new and fair treaty. The Raikage looked at her and said. Or, I can kick your Sorial over the arena in a gladiator match. The Raikage eyes widen. There was no way that she could know about that challenge. It was something that was never used anymore. In the days before any of the great ninja wars, it was a known way to settle things. Not long after someone got the idea for a war. Now that she had issued the challenge, he had one of two choices. He can back off and try to settle a new treaty with Konoha, or face her in a fight. What do I get if we win? The Raikage asked. Kushina sighed. She had talked this over with both members of the council. She didn't like this, and neither did the members of the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan. If you win, you will get 3 things. Kushina said. 2 of which you will end up with both a member of the Uchiha clan and a member of the Hyuga clan. A nodded. And the third? It was times like this that she hated the council. They had no right to do this to her, however it was a surefire way to get her to win. If you win, the third will be my. She stopped so that she could take a deep breath. Will be my son. The Raikage blinked at her. That was a pretty big risk, but why her son? Why would I want him? He asked. Kushina looked at Abi and the young girl. Her eyes stayed longer on the girls when she said, "Because he is the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki." Everyone in the room had wide eyes. Looked back at his brother and the young woman. To have had 3 Jinchuriki would be so wonderful. In his mind he had already won. With 3 out of the 9 in his army he could rule the elemental nations. To top it off he'll have an Uchiha and a Hyuga. Something that both he and his father had wanted. "You have a deal," A said. "Don't worry about your son, he'll be in good hands," Abi sighed. "Maybe you should listen to what she has to say if she wins, Master A," the young blonde said. A looked back at her and sneered. However, she did have a point. He turned back to Kushina. "If I win, you are to hand over both the host of the 8 tails and the 2 tails," Kushina said. She was looking at Abi and the young blonde. A looked back at the 2 of them. Unknown to the world, Abi was the father to the young woman. That made her family, however he didn't care, all he cared about was power. To pass up this chance to have 3 more powerful beings in his ranks was just too hard to pass up. "Very well," the Raikage said. Kushina looked down. She didn't want to do this, however a part of her still wanted revenge. "The battle will take place within a week," Kushina said. "This way we can set up a barrier that will prevent the audience from getting hurt." That had brought a surprised look to his face. Kushina smiled. "As we speak, lords and their ladies are making their way here to be witness to the fight, if either of you is to back off from the deal. The other half will be there to see the full power of a cage fight." Kushina walked back to her desk, and brought out some papers. Basically it would be like the Chunin exams. Kushina said as she pushed the papers to the Raikage. "I need you to sing this form, of course you have to read it first. That is if you can you meathead." A looked over the form which was written by both the staff of the Lord of the Land of Lighting and the staff of the Lord of the Land of Fire. Neither of the 2 forms were the same, meaning that they were real. He placed some chakra inside the seal that was at the bottom of the forms after signing his name. He then pushed it back to Kushina, who had done the same. Her hand hovered above the sign. If she did this and lost, she would lose her only connection that she had to Minato, the one other person that she would have given her life for. With a heavy heart, Kushina Uzumaki, the 5th Hokage, made the hardest choice that she had ever made. She placed some of her chakra into the seal. Both papers glowed and they vanished. "It's done," Kushina said. "In 7 days, we will fight." Kushina looked at the Raikage and his guards. "Know that if either of us goes back on our words, the seal will active, sending a signal into our hearts, ing us." Kushina said. "You're welcome to stay in the village to train or whatever, but I would like it if you don't send any more of my shinobi to the hospital." With nothing more to say, his brother and his niece left the office. When they were gone, Hiruzen came out. Kushina walked up to him and hugged him as she cried into his shoulders. "Oh God, what have I done?" Kushina asked. She was hoping that he wouldn't have taken the challenge. She even prayed that he wouldn't, but it seemed that he cared nothing for his brother, or the young teen. "Naruto, please forgive me. Once again I could be a bastard and end the chapter here, but I won't. I hope I do justice by the fighting, seeing as how I had a hard time finding any moves for A. See ending notes for details. On this and way I made Yugito B's daughter. Because of how important this event was, all the great lords had made to Konoha where Kushina, and to the surprise of others, A had greeted them. Other guests had also made. These were going to be future clients of either of the 2 nations depending on where they live. Over the week Kushina was hard at training, in a field where Minato had made to hide the development of both jutsus that had made him famous in the war. Kushina was working on something new, something that would make the Rasengan her own. She had no choice in the matter, she had to win this fight or die trying, and she couldn't live with herself if she lost her son. Kushina had asked Hiruzen to take over for her while she had trained. Hiruzen agreed, and had made Kakashi and Asuma, who would be living after the fight, to go and train as one of the 12 guardians, his advisors not trusting his two teammates. They had already caused more trouble than they were worth in this matter. Somehow they paid enough people to get back in the council when the annual voting had taken place. It was something that changed when Kushina took office as Hokage. The civilian council was to change with each year, to prevent them from getting greedy or have them try something against her son. For the most part it had worked and people had loved the idea of being on the council for a year. However, somehow this year had more headaches than it was worth. People that have given Kushina and Hiruzen trouble in the past were back in office. This included Hiruzen's old teammates. The same teammates that had suggested Kushina place Naruto into the deal with a child form the Hyuga and Uchiha clans. Hiruzen for his part had liked the staff that she had picked out to help with the paperwork. While he had taken care of the important stuff that had to with the ninja force, the staff would take care of the things that had to do with the village. Hiruzen smiled. It was the same setup that Kushina grandfather had done when he was leader of Whirlpool. Whether she knew it or not, she was following in her footsteps, and the people of Konoha loved her for it. Hiruzen watched as the young woman slept. His eyes softened as she heard her say, "Please forgive me, Naruto." Sometimes he hated the council for putting Kushina in the situation. Even he couldn't understand why they would do that. He knew that they hated her son for what he was, but why punish Kushina? Something wasn't right with this and he had to do something about it. Someone was working in the shadows and he didn't like it one little bit. The Raikage wasn't happy that Kushina would only allow 10 non-shinobi people to be allowed into the village. He understood why. Kushina wouldn't risk an invasion. As people came from all over to watch the match that was being held as the fight of the decade, Kushina was getting ready for her fight. She had asked Kakashi to watch Naruto, pretty much asking him not to take the young boy to the fight. However, Naruto protested, saying that he wanted to see his mother fight. "It would be so cool to see you fight, Ma," Naruto said, hyped up and pumping his fist in the air. "You'll kick Hiso badly, they will fell it in Kumo." Kushina looked at her son. "Where did you learn that word?" she asked in a kind voice. Naruto blinked, thinking back to where he heard that word. "From Ero-sensei." Kushina growled. Not only had Jiraiya started training him in chakra control, but he also taught him to curse. She was going to have some words with him. Wearing black pants and shirt, Kushina had placed her belt on, not bothering to put on her kunai or shuriken pouch on. She didn't need it. Instead, she put on the pouches that held her claws. She was halfway to mastering her fox style, and once she did, she would train Naruto to use it as well. Zipping up her jacket and placing her gloves on, Kushina looked at Kakashi. The young man nodded. He would not let anything happen to the young man. Place her boots on. She zipped up the sides to them. The jacket she had worn was like Minato, only it was shorter than his, allowing for more room to fight in. It was red in color with black flames on the back and at the helm. The Uzumaki spiral in the center of the flames. Kushina looked at her headband. She hadn't worn it since before she was pregnant. Shaking her head, she took a headband that had once belonged to her husband, her friend, her love and her soulmate. Minato Namikaze. She turned it around and looked at what she had written there. Minato, you are my soulmate. My everything, you give me strength where others have failed to do so. I love you so much, use that love as you become Hokage. Love Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. She had forgotten why she went back to her maiden name. However, she didn't care anymore. Only a handful of people has known that she was Minato's wife. Minato, I once gave you the strength to become Hokage. Please give me your strength that I need to protect our son. Kushina said in a soft prayer as she tied the headband around her head. She was ready. It was times like this that Kushina wished that her sensei was back from her mission. She really needed some advice at this point in the game. She wasn't listening to what Hiruzen was saying as she glared at the Raikage. The man before her had dark tan skin and blonde hair. He was built more like a bodybuilder than anything she had ever seen, however that didn't fool her. It was often the ninja that didn't show their skills on the battlefield that was the most deadly of any. Kushina herself had a few secrets up her sleeve. Kick his mum. Her 4-year-old son shouted through the crowd. Kushina glared at Jiraiya. The glare had promised him a lot of pain. You can do it, Mom, believe it. That brought a smile to her face. Leave it to her son, to find the best way to make her smile. Just like his father. That's your weapon? The Raikage asked. Kushina glared at him. I can see that he would be quite powerful one day. Kushina was growling now. His name is Naruto, and unlike you and your father, I treat him like the son that he is. Kushina was ready to kick Hiss all over the place. He isn't a weapon, he will never be a weapon. Her fingernails had cut into her palms, drawing blood. The Raikage was once again not listening to her. That's it, this bastard's dead, I don't care if it does start a war. Kushina thought. Shina, calm. I told you before, anger cloud the mind. Kurama said. She looked to Naruto, whose eyes were red. The whisker marks were a little denser than normal. Do not worry, I am not harming the kit. But I need you to stay calm. Remember, you might still have some of my chakra, but it's still a danger to you. Kushina nodded. That was how she was able to live after Kurama was pulled from her. He was able to leave a part of him within her just to keep her alive. Once again she turned back to look at the Raikage. It was time to beat this bastard back to where he came from. Drawing her weapons and locking them in place, she was ready. As some of you may understand, Hiruzen had shouted out to the crowd. This is a fight for honor that had come into question thanks to the village of the Cloud Ninja. The people from Konoha booed the Raikage. The Raikage was blinded to see that he had made a mistake in trying to have kidnapped the daughter of the head of the Hyuga clan. By invoking the gladiator challenge Kushina Uzumaki, the 5th Hokage has no choice but to battle the 4th Raikage. Kushina looked at her nails and then back at the Raikage. The rules are anything goes as long as there are knowing blows. Hiruzen said. After all, there was no reason for that. Looked at Kushina, shame that he had to beat that pretty little face in. The one that had been knocked out will lose the fight. Hiruzen raised his hand. Fighters ready. Begin. He had yelled out, slamming his hand on the bell. Wasted no time as was at Kushina's side in a matter of seconds, throwing a high-power combo of punches and kicks. Kushina was moving around like it was a dance to her, blocking them and best she could. Just as she was about to get hit, she saw an opening and slammed an open palm strike to his ribs, causing the big man to jump back. Just as the Raikage was about to go back to attacking her, Kushina brought up her hands. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. With that, over 100 clones had appeared. Each one was grinning at the Raikage. Attack. Kushina order and the clones started to attack the big man, throwing punches and kicked at him. For his part, the Raikage was doing his best to block and counter each attack like it was nothing. That was until Kushina had found a blind spot in his defense. Throwing a specially made senbon, which had allowed her to use the Haration to move above the Raikage. Rinnegan! Kushina yelled out. A looked up and saw the young woman falling at a fast rate at him. The old man had moved out of the way just in time to avoid being hit by the spinning ball of chakra. Dust was sent into the air as Kushina and the Rinnegan hit the ground. Kushina clones had moved out of the way long after that. If that is how you want to play it, A said, making several signs. Raitan no Yoroi. As soon as that was said, A body was covered in lighting. The clones looked at Kushina, who nodded. Each one was sent at A to find a weakness in his attack. However, they weren't as lucky, as A had destroyed each one as they made their way to him. Bushin Baku! Kushina had yelled out, causing a heavy explosion as the clone had gone up in smoke as they had explored in the Raikage's face. It seemed to have worked, and when the smoke cleared, the older man had burn marks all over him. I'm not done with you yet, old man, Kushina said as she started making hand signs. Dienden. As soon as that was said, a wall of flames shot of her month heading towards A at an alarming rate. It didn't stop as he jumped out of the Y. Seeing that the attack wasn't doing anything, Kushina stopped and looked up. Bending down, Kushina then jumped up after him, her fists at her side. A saw this coming and set up a counter-attack that had sent the young Hokage down to the ground hard on her back. Damn it, he's fast, Kushina thought. Kushina's eyes widened as she saw that A was heading her way and she backflipped to avoid the attack. Shit, so he decided to start using his hell thrust, has he? As Kushina looked closely, she could see that A was cloaked in his lighting chakra. However, what had caught Kushina's eyes the most was the fact that his hand had a concentrated amount chakra focus in his hand. I can't get hit by that or it's game over. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. After making several more clones, they looked at her. Buy me some time, Kushina told one of them as they brought out their own weapons. The clones started to attack A with fast-paced strikes. Kushina once again watched, looking for any weakness in his style. Shit! Kushina yelled out as the blonde man destroyed the last of her clones and ran right at her. Hari Jizu. Kushina's hair grew out and then started to cover her body and had hardened. When she could feel A closing in and close enough, she once again shouted out. Hari Jigoku. Kushina's hair went back to normal after the call, which sent some of her hair flying at the Raikage, piercing his skin in small wounds. Up in the stands, Jiraiya had watched her with surprising eyes. 3 of the moves that she had done were his, but he only had taught one person those moves. Minato, you sly fox, you taught her move then just the Rasengan and the Haration, didn't you? Of course, his question would not be answered for some time. However, the move that she had done wasn't powerful enough to slow A down and he was closing in fast. Damn it, I haven't been able to practice this move yet. Rasengan Spiral Spin Shield. Kushina started spin cause member of the Hyuga clan to question just what she was doing, that is until they saw the chakra that started to follow her spinning. There's no way in hell that she knows the Hakushu. Hisahei said. His brother, who was setting next to him, looked at him. Yes, however, if you look closely enough you can clearly see that it's only based on the heavenly spin move. The youngest of the twins said. With the chakra spinning around her, A couldn't stop his attack in time, and when his fist hit the spinning chakra shield it caused an explosion that had several people covering their eyes. A was sent flying back. When Kushina saw this she growled out and said, No you don't. Throwing her hand forward, Kushina released a single chakra chain at the rakeage. The end of the chain turned into a spear and went into the left shoulder of the rakeage. Get over her, bitch. Kushina tug on the chain, sending the rakeage back at her. As he came close enough, Kushina called out, double strike Rinnegan. In both palms of her hand the ball of spinning chakra appeared. She ran at the incoming rakeage and slammed both her hands into him, once again causing an explosion. This had sent the rakeage flying once more, sending him into the wall. Kushina was panting hard. However, she had time for one more attack. It had to be her last attack or this was all over and she would lose her son. She wasn't going to allow that to happen, not today, not tomorrow, and not ever. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Again a large number of clones stood behind her. However, what had caught the eyes of everyone in the stands was that each one was holding a Rinnegan. In the Hokage box, Hiruzen stood up. It's over, he said softly. Jiraiya stood next to him. That girl is just amazing, isn't she, sensei? Hiruzen nodded. Kushina had really come a long way from the child she once was. And while there was time she had questioned her own skills, everyone could clearly see that Kushina Uzumaki wasn't a force to be messed with. As the two had talked, Kushina clones had attacked the rakeage without mercy. Just like he had done several years back in Whirlpool, men, woman, child, and let's not forget the shinobi that were trying hard to protect the village. Each strike made it count. When the last clone hit, the rakeage fell to his knees. He was bleeding badly. As Kushina walked up to him, the man was barely able to move. Kushina stood at the rakeage. In her hand was a Rinnegan that would finish this man off. How? The weakened rakeage had asked. How are you so strong? Kushina lowered her hand, the chakra attack disappearing. She looked into the fallen man's eyes. I'm strong not because I have been training. Kushina said. While my senseis trained me to become the greatest ninja that I wish to be, that is not the cause enough. Kushina looked up and saw that her 4-year-old son was looking at her. It's because I have things, people that I need to protect. She turned to look at Hiruzen. It's because of the people that I love, that are the cause of my strength, eh? Kushina turned her back to the fallen rakeage. This fight is over, rakeage. Kushina said. Take your brother and niece home with you. In the stanza, B and his young daughter eyes widen. You want to be strong. Then you protect them with more than your life. However, the rakeage didn't see it that way. As he got up, he had grabbed a kunai from his pouch. With it in hand, he had ran at Kushina. This fight isn't over yet. He yelled at her. Mom, look out. Naruto had yelled out to her. Kushina had turned just in time to grab the rakeage's wrist. With a twist, she had snapped it and then ran a hand with a Rinnegan into his chest. Once again he was sent into the wall, only this time he didn't get back up. He had clearly broken the one rule after Kushina had ended the match. By attacking her he had forfeited his life. Kushina looked down at him. He was still alive but just barely. Cloud, your rakeage is dying. He had broken the rules of engagement. Get out of here, he doesn't have much time to live. As people of the Cloud village came down to get their fallen leader Abi, and the young girl walked up to him. What are you doing here? She asked them. I set you free from the deal, go take care of your brother. Killer B shook his head. A deal, Lady Hokage, we will follow it just like both you and bro had agreed. B looked at the girl next to him. This is Yugito, my daughter. The young blonde bowed to Kushina. The young redhead rubbed the back of her head. Killer B, you should go back to Cloud. I can tell you're not like the rest of them. Yugito looked at the woman before her. I saw you during the attack on Whirlpool. Kushina said. You were helping people rather than ing them. Beside, Konoha isn't too kind when it comes to hosts. Urbi nodded. Go back to Cloud, become their Raikage, teach them that hatred isn't the just cause. She patted the big man on the shoulder. You have a good heart, use it to change Cloud for the better. With that said, Kushina turned to Liv. As the two watched her go, they saw a young blonde hair by about 4 years of age run up to her and hug her. Arby turns to his daughter and smiled at her. She a good woman, come on brat, let's go. Yugito frowned at him, but as they turned to leave, Yugito was surprised that her father took her hand as they had walked away from mother and son. It was something that he haven't done in a long time. It seems that Kushina is becoming a bigger pain than we had thought. Someone said from the shadows. We might have to step things up if this continues. Fugaku could only nod. When she became Hokage, there were plans made. However, it will be another 4 years before we can have everything set up. Silence went through the meeting room. No one wanted to talk. So be it, Fugaku, you have 4 years. In that time, if you do not attack, then I will you. Fugaku Uchiha nodded his head before he bowed. As you wish, he said. Master Madara.